Lots of enthusiasm for motor gearbox units the past 2 years, in fact this century, and for good reason. Reduced maintenance costs, less vulnerability to the gearing on the back of your e-bike, and also great performance when it comes to downhill. But have we reached a turning point in MGUs, or are we still on the journey to find gearbox heaven? In this video then, we look at the current state of play with MGUs because at least 6 different brands from 6 different countries have been working on systems in the past decade. So let's cast our mind back to Eurobike in 2018. I mean, this is really when we saw some of the first MGUs. First of all, I want to draw attention to a brand called Mubea. Now, they were from Austria, make parts for McLaren F1. They came out with this 200mm monster of a bike. It had a 1200 watt hour battery, it was chain drive, and it had the option of having it either as a pedelec at 250 watts or actually more of a moped at 4000 watts. Really liked the kind of system on this bike. It was sub 5 kilos, and I think if they'd have actually made a bike with a smaller battery, it would actually have been quite a cool bike. Moving on to 2019, again at Eurobike, it's the first time we saw Revonte, which is a brand from Finland. Very cool brand, very cool people work for that company. 90 Newton meters, a super compact unit. We saw it on some sort of commuter urban bikes, but there was plans for having it on mountain bikes. They had funding from the government. They had venture capitalists funding the business as well. And really sad news is that they filed for bankruptcy last year. But what was the reason then that Revonte didn't work? And I think it was actually simply that the stars didn't align. I mean, there was the whole COVID business and they couldn't take their product to some of the big industry manufacturers. So really sad that that didn't happen. If you want to find out some of the bigger picture, the bigger story behind why Revonte didn't happen, have a look on Bike Europe and it gives you a really detailed interview with the CEO of that company. Now, the thing with Revonte is that they weren't actually from the automotive industry, but nevertheless, they did have some very clever experts, especially in software technology. Now, if we move into Eurobike 2020, that's when we actually met a few more companies. First of all was Cavello, which was from France. Now they had a different style unit. It was more in the sort of Fazua sort of mold in terms of its shape and form. 70 Newton meters, 4, 6 or 12 speed, and 3.7 kilos. So quite a compact unit there from Cavello. Not actually heard from them for a few years now. And then the big one, which I think really did have huge potential to work, was FEV from Germany. Now, this was a sub 4 kilo system, 100 Newton meters or more. It had the potential of having 1000 watts to the rear wheel, electronic shifting, 12 speed. I mean, it had all the things going for it and some really interesting characters which I met at Eurobike. Now, the last thing I heard from FEV were they were looking for investors. Hopefully, they'll be able to find somebody to bring a new system to the market. So, as you can see, already quite a few countries in the picture. I don't think there's any plans from Merthyr Tydfil just yet, but who knows in the future. So moving now to France and Vallejo in partnership with Gear. They came out with a system which again was over 100 Newton meters, the possibility of over 2 kilowatts to the rear wheel and weighing in again around about 4 kilos. Now, I rode this bike out in Verbier a few years ago. There were plans for production. That was in partnership with a French brand called Cavalry, I think, which actually they make MTBs with the Gear system as well. Back here in the UK, a brand called Intradrive, which is from Edinburgh. Very cool company. And Neil actually had a chat with these folks a few months ago. The cool thing about Intradrive is the fact that it is actually a rebuildable system. So I think there's recently been a demo day up in Scotland with Intradrive, and we're really hoping to catch up with those folks in the future. We've seen it on orange bikes and we've also seen it on, I think it was pace bikes quite recently. So lots of news coming on. Let's turn our attention now to a Belgian brand called E2 Drives, and they had a drive called Owuru, as OWURU, and this was a continuously variable transmission. The bike I rode at Eurobike last year was actually an urban bike, but it was so quiet. The great thing about Owuru was that they've got plans to make an eMTB system. So hopefully in a few weeks' time when we get to Eurobike, we'll have an update from the folks from Belgium. Which brings us to Pinion, arguably the finest MGU system so far, and featured on quite a few bikes. Now, we started off on the Pinion on a Simplon bike last year, rode it in the mud, rode it downhill, and I think for me, I was really quite surprised at the downhill smoothness of the system. Other bikes on the market, we've got the Flyer Go Rock, we've got, what have we got? Crikey, we've got the Moustache bike, and also you've got a Roadfield bike. The interesting thing about the Roadfield bike, we talk about the reduced vulnerability of not having a derailleur on an MGU bike. Actually, on the Roadfield, you've actually got a pulley wheel, a dual pulley wheel on the back there, which I would argue is quite vulnerable too. And then, of course, the Nikolai, a beautifully burly bike and so well made. And I think that's the thing that we're looking for with MGU bikes, the fact that they're well made and they're reliable and they're durable and they last a long time. This bike, you might recognize it, it's the one we rode out in Italy last year. It doesn't have the mud guards on it this time. It's had a great season off-road in the winter. I think as an adventure bike, it's great. As an enduro bike, it's even better. 160mm travel. Comes with actually the option of a 720 or a 960 watt-hour battery in the down tube. As you can see here, it's got the Gates carbon drive. It's 85 Newton meters. And I think, yeah, like I said, I think it's all about durability of the complete system. The question with all this motor gearbox unit business is why? I mean, I get it. I get the less maintenance, the less vulnerability of the system and the performance downhill. However, there are some fantastic eMTBs on the market at a fraction of the price of an MGU bike. The problem with MGU bikes at the moment is choice. There's not really that much choice for buyers. You see people having fantastic time on the bikes, don't get me wrong, but there's not very many bikes on the market for, say, less than 7,000 euros. I mean, take the options you have. I mean, let's have a look at my latest Canyon Neuron On bike. It's aluminium, 150mm travel, 29-inch wheels, 800 watt-hour battery, and the Bosch Performance Line CX motor with 100 Newton meters. I mean, that bike is £3,499. It will definitely go downhill as fast as any of the MGU bikes. It might not possibly be as quiet and have that kind of feeling. You can hear the tires gripping into the terrain, but it won't be a million miles off. And when it comes down to uphill performance, it'll definitely be faster uphill than an MGU bike. And all that comes at a price, like I said, £3,499. You could actually buy a whole warehouse full of derailleurs and cassettes for that price. But returning to the Nikolai bike, I mean, this is a bike that delivers on so many levels. I mean, first of all, let's go through the things that make it so special. First of all, the fact that there's less maintenance. I mean, there's a 10,000 kilometer service interval on that drive unit. Less vulnerability on the rear, like I mentioned, because there's no derailleur, especially with this system. This is the Gates carbon drive. You don't have to oil the chain. I mean, in my world, I mean, that's a dream. I mean, the thing is, there's less faffing with a system like this, and I think that is something which is really cool. Having said that, I don't actually faff with e-mounted bikes anyway. The fact that it's a silent gliding ride down the hill, the less kind of weight on the rear wheel, the balance in the system is really cool. Two things for me which I think are really important is the fact that the chain doesn't actually get tied up in the rear derailleur. I know, sometimes with an e-bike, when you're shifting on a steep climb through the gears, it can get meshed up and it can get tangled, and sometimes you can snap the chain. Not so with a system like this. And also the fact that the shifting on this is just really consistent. You know that it's going to change gear. And one other thing which I think is really cool is the fact that there's stationary shifting. You can maybe come up to a climb at the base of a climb and you're in the wrong gear. You can actually kind of balance it out, and you can go down through, or you can go up through the gears to get set up for the climb ahead. So I think in summary, if you're riding certain types of terrain, I think it's a great enduro style bike. It's a great adventure style bike, and possibly more of the sort of winch and descend style riding. That bike really is, that's where its strength lies. So what do we know less about when it comes to MGU bikes in general? Well, I think the first thing is the system of either the belt drive or the chain drive. I mean, let's face it, no chain or belt is 100% reliable. I know that sometimes a belt drive can actually be damaged, certainly in muddy conditions. I think for me is the business of efficiency, about the range of the system. Now, the thing with square cut gears and planetary drives of that shape and form, the fact that there is friction in the system. So you're actually going to get bikes which have got lesser range. So therefore, you know, you've got bikes which might have, like the Roadfield, it's got 1,000 watt-hour battery. That's going to impact on the weight of the bike. But, you know, the great thing about the derailleur and cassette system is actually pretty efficient. And also, when it comes to the uphill performance, I've ridden quite a few motor gearbox bikes now, and I don't think they're quite there yet. I mean, some of them, there's definitely a kind of a drop in the crank, and especially when you're climbing super technical terrain, it needs to be bang on. It needs to be super reactive when you're kind of addressing a step or a route. So I don't think there is a system, I don't think there's a motor gearbox unit out there at the moment which will beat a traditional motor such as a Bosch CX or a DJI. Well, certainly not a DJI because of the power it gives you. It gives you 120 Newton meters, 1,000 watts peak power. I don't think the MGU bikes have that power, and I don't think they have the crispness of delivery of the gears just yet. And like I said, the whole business of the price of the bikes, lots of people won't be able to afford an MGU bike just yet. But hey, maybe that might change in the future.